Okay, so I'm back and I'm excited. I'm really excited about this pen comparison. I wouldn't call it a challenge per se, but I think it's a fun thing to take these three pens that are presently on the market, and two of which are trying to imitate the big leader, of course. So here you have my Montblanc 149 at roughly $1,200 Canadian, depending on when you buy it. Here's my Jinaho X159, and I forget what I paid it, but it's anywhere between $10 and $15. And here is my Wing Sung 630 steel nib, not gold nib. It would have been probably even more fun to get my Winsung in the gold nib, but I haven't done it yet. I'm still thinking about whether or not it's worth $150 roughly. So those are the three we have for you today. And what I propose is that we take a look at all of them and see how they compare. Okay, in almost every respect that I can think of. So let's start with size comparison. As you can see, and let me just close up here. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I would think that my Wing Sung is just a tad bigger than the 150 X159 and the Montblanc, but I got to tell you, really, really close. So in terms of size, there you have it. Now, in terms of the clips, I'm going to try to see if I can come even closer. Here we go. They are very, very similar. It's basically the same design, except there is a difference when you get to look at the detail. The Montblanc has slightly little more detail. It has a kind of a little in bent or lining, or a little line right at the top there, whereas the other ones are simply smooth. There is a kind of a ring around them all that kind of give you that contour. Okay, in terms of the top finial, they're fairly similar here. We're not now we're going to get into some of the differences, and but before we do, the middle band, the Jinaho only has one large band, whereas both the 149 and the 630, the Wing Sung, have a major band in the middle with two rings on each side, with obviously different brand names inscribed in each. Okay, it goes without saying that the Montblanc has its brand, this mountain pinnacle white at the top. The other ones have a simple finial. Okay, so if we can just go back here, in terms of the bottom finial, if they will, they're pretty well the same. Okay, there's that gold ring and the finial there, and they're fairly the same size, except I would say the Montblanc is slightly smaller, but not by much. So that compares the outside. Now, let's keep doing that, and what I propose now is that we weigh them. So here I have my trusty balance. We'll put on, and let's start with the I'll start with the Montblanc, if you will. So that gives me 32 grams. Let's look at the Jinaho X159, 29 grams. So right away, there's almost a 4 gram difference. Let me put in my Wing Sung, 33. Okay. I got to tell you that, there could be a slight difference because of the weight of the ink, depending on how much ink I have in each of them. Okay. So we're looking at, between the Wing Sung and the Montblanc, it's quite amazing. Okay. Let's just look at the cap. If I weigh the cap of the Wing Sung, okay, let me just make sure. Yeah, 11 grams. The cap of the Montblanc, 11 grams. Isn't that amazing? And the cap of the X159 is 10 grams. Okay, so again, the X159 comes a little bit short. Now, if I just weigh the rest, that's 17 for the Jinaho. The Wing Sung gives me 22, and compared to 21 for my Montblanc. So Wing Sung so far is, I would say, just equal to the Montblanc, which is, in my view, just absolutely amazing. Okay, now let's take a look at the nibs, if you will, of these three pens. And at the same time, we can take a look at the interior. Okay. First of all, just from a bird's eye view, we all know that the Jinaho is a converter. Okay, so it has no ink window, and that it is a converter system, filling system, whereas both the Wing Sung 630 and the Montblanc have piston fillers with ink windows. You can see the ink window a little bit better on the Wing Sung because it is striped there, whereas you don't see it very well with my Montblanc just because the ink is a dark blue. So the ink window is less visible, but it's there. Okay, there you go. There you can see it. Okay. They all three have this black plastic ring or resin ring right at the top. Okay, in terms of the screwing mechanism, pretty similar. The size of the fingertip, where the fingertips hold, fairly similar, I would say, even in size. Now, in terms of those nibs, the X150 size 8 nib looks a little bit smaller, but in my view, it only looks smaller because it's probably more pronouncedly inserted in the nib unit as compared to the Wing Sung and the Montblanc. Now, obviously, both the Jinaho and the Wing Sung, we're talking about two-toned steel nibs, whereas my Montblanc is a two-toned 18 karat. Okay, so there's also a difference. My Jinaho is a medium, my Wing Sung is a fine, and my Montblanc is a broad. Okay, so you get fine, medium, and broad, and we can see in the writing sample how all that comes out. So that's very, very interesting, I would say to you. Okay, what I'd like to do next is see if they post. First of all, my Wing Sung 159, X159, posts very comfortably and securely and provides a certain size. Quite balanced, by the way. My Montblanc probably posts a little bit less, but nonetheless, you see the difference is quite minimal. Okay, as far as my wing sung is concerned, that I would say to you is the one that has the most difficulty posting. It's not a secure posting. Okay, it quickly comes out. I really need to, insert it. So the posting on the wing sung, I would say, is not ideal. And you can see it's the longest one because it doesn't post as securely as the two others. So that's for the posting. Okay, we'll be doing now the writing samples, if you will. I'm using Tomoe River for this first sampling. Wonderland 222 notebook, which is essentially very similar to the Obenichi, if you will. So we will start with the master, of course, which is the Montblanc. So this is my Montblanc. $149, and the nib is a Montblanc 18-karat, two-toned, broad, and if we could just very, very soft nib, of course, very wet, provides plenty of smoothness and consistency. There's no problem with this nib, as you can well imagine. Smooth as butter. Okay, that's my Montblanc. Okay, next, let's look at the Jinaho. So this is the Jinaho X159. The nib is a Jinaho steel number 8 size, and it is a medium nib. I forgot to mention, but the Montblanc is also size number 8. And let me just in terms of how line variation, very little, but again, very wet, very constant. I have no problems here whatsoever. The nib follows nicely. No feedback whatsoever. It is smooth as butter, has no difficulty keeping up. Okay, so that's the Jinaho medium. Now, next, let me just go up so you can see all three. The next one is my Wing Sung 630. The nib is a Wing Sung steel number 8 size, fine nib. In terms of, it is springy. I gotta tell you, it is springy, and for a fine nib, oof, just really, really nice. Sorry for my handwriting here, because of my hand tremor. All these lines should be a little bit, here we go. And in terms of smooth as butter, I mean, you could hear a little bit of feedback just because it's fine. Okay, so there you have the 3 writing samples. I think all 3 perform just wonderfully. But, the price difference, where do we go from here, folks? I mean, what is it that we don't like about this Jinaho and about this Wing Sung that would warrant that kind of a price difference? You know what I'm saying? Will they last? That's the big question. I know that, what is it, the reviewer Doodlebutt, I think that's his branding, had a lot negative things to say about the X159. He said that things were falling apart, and he didn't feel it was solid enough. I got to tell you, mine is pretty solid. I haven't had any problems yet, but I guess time will tell. I suspect that my Montblanc will outlive the other 2. But again, it's just a speculation on my part. So there you have the 3 samples. What we'll do is we'll try to use Rhodia paper just to see how the Rhodia paper brings these 3 pens out. Be back in a second. Okay, I'm back with the Rhodia notebook. And let's see how the Rhodia brings out these pens. So this is my Montblanc 149, and because the graph squares are a little bit bigger, it'll get me to write a little bit bigger as well. So the nib is the Montblanc number 8 size, 18 karat, 2-toned. Broad nib. So in terms of line variation and wetness, in terms of being able to keep up, not a problem. Not a problem either. I got to tell you, I prefer the Tomoe River. That's me, by the way. That's not the pen. The Rhodia paper has a tendency to kind of it's like the pen is pushing through water. It's not it's not my favorite paper in any event. Maybe fountain pen friendly, but can't compare to Tomoe River. Jinaho X159. The nib is a Jinaho number 8 size steel 2-toned medium nib. In terms of line variation, very little, but still juicy. I can tell that because it is a smaller nib, in other words, it's not as wide as the broad, the pen has a tendency to flow much better on this Rhodia paper. Again, not a problem keeping up than the broad. In other words, there's less friction. It's not feedback, it's just friction on the paper. That's, I guess, the best way for me to describe that feeling. This is the Wing Sung, yeah, and you can see this fine, is even better. 630. The nib is a Wing Sung number 8 size, steel, 2-toned, fine nib. In terms of line variation, springy but not too much line variation. There you go. Pretty constant I think the pen has no problems following. It keeps up beautifully and is buttery smooth. Okay, so there you have it. Let me just bring it up a little bit so you get to see all three. Now, one thing that's interesting in the Rhodia paper, of course, the shading of the inks doesn't stand out, in my opinion, as much as it does in the Tomoe River. I mean, especially on this. This is Scribo Verde Mediterraneo ink, and it's got some beautiful shading, and you get to see it a lot better, I would say, in my Tomoe River. Now, what I also noticed is that, it comes up much thicker on the Tomoe River as compared to my Rhodia. The Rhodia, it's probably, the fine looks like a fine, the medium looks like a medium, and the broad looks like a broad. Although I got to tell you, very little difference between this medium and that broad. But it's much thicker on my Tomoe River for some reason. There you have it. But there you go. So, we use two different papers. Frankly, I don't know who wins in all these three. I don't think there's a winner. It's very difficult to say there's a winner and a loser. I guess it all depends on how badly we feel about, one company knocking off the design of another. But you've got to admit, when all is said and done, that Jinaho and Wingsum have evolved. They've come a long way. Those nibs now are comparable to an 18-karat Montblanc nib. So you know what? You got to tip off your hat. They haven't copied Montblanc's nib. So you know what? You've got to give them some credit for that. But there you have it. I hope you found this interesting and informative. And please subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for my next video. We've got a bunch of other Chinese pens to review. So stay tuned, folks. It's fountain pen therapy for all of us.